Do the trashy pulp novels of the world have anything to offer? Are bestsellers all they're cracked up to be? Here at Terrible Book Club, we explore whether you really can judge a book by its cover, or its ridiculous synopsis. You ever passed a book and thought, ugh, who's reading this? We probably are.
Hello and welcome to episode 121 of the Terrible Book Club. I'm Paris and this is Chris.
Hello.
This time we read Rush Revere and the Brave Pilgrims, published in 2013 by Simon & Schuster and written by none other than fucking Rush Limbaugh. We read this at the behest of our patron, Martin. Thanks so much for your support, Martin. He's been listening to and supporting TBC for a long time, and we really appreciate him.
Yay, hooray, Martin, hooray.
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 In fact, if you are listening to this episode, which I guess you would have to be to hear this, so that was a really stupid and pointless preamble. Martin...
If you have summoned this episode into your brain...
I don't know, man.
Just by habit, you walked through the wrong aether cloud, and it just fell into your whole...
You know, we have talked about like the future of media and how maybe someday you'll snort podcasts. I don't know. But anyway, Martin, our beloved patron who asked us to read this, he encourages you to donate what you can to an LGBTQIA+ organization near you in memory of Rush Limbaugh's lifelong campaign of hate. Alternatively, you can send some direct mutual aid to someone in need in your area. Honestly, I kind of want to say you can sort of donate to almost anything to spite Rush Limbaugh, because he kind of hated everybody.
Is the phrase in memory of appropriate there? In memory against, right? I think better.
In spiteful memory of? Yeah, I don't know. I guess the point being... Fuck Rush Limbaugh, and remember to support any of the people that he hated, which is most people.
Yeah, that's a wide net, turns out.
Yeah,
you don't have to look far.
If you're not a straight white American conservative man, Rush Limbaugh hated you. So if you fall into that very large net, this message is for you. If you're not sure where to donate or what to do, we'll put some recommendations in the show description for you. If you're not sure, this is a reminder to future Paris to do that. If this is your first time listening to the show, what we do here at the Terrible Book Club is we read books that we assume will be bad based on their cover, title, summary, or some combination of the three. And
we've never had author. Has author been part of that before?
No, I think whenever we've had an author, like a controversial author that we thought was bad, like today, I feel like those have all been patron requests. I don't know. I guess maybe not, because
if I saw this book on a shelf, I would see the author name and immediately go, "Oh, that's probably shit."
Anyway, sometimes, like today, we read books that our patrons, listeners, or friends recommend, so we don't always choose the books each time, like today, when Martin chose this book. But typically we do the opposite of what most people do in a bookstore or while they're browsing the internet looking for something to read. Usually, our experiment results in a disappointing read, but once in a while we do actually end up liking the book and find ourselves pleasantly surprised. Content warnings for today. So, in addition to our usual barnyard language, today's episode includes discussion of genocide, misogyny, racism, and some anti-queer LGBTQIA+ rhetoric. Also some drug use. I just remembered that. That is now out of alphabetical order, and I will forever hate myself for that. Moving on.
Paris, wait, hold, you've been alphabetizing the content warnings?
Yes.
Paris, I think I might need, like, you need help at this point. If your organizational madness is to the point where you're alphabetizing the content warnings,
yeah, so
there must be some kind of program I can put you in.
This is a sidebar, but like, I really, the last like 2-3 years, I've really started to think that I got something. There is something. My brain doesn't work like a lot of other people's brains, so I don't know. I definitely got something going on.
Wholly unnecessary.
It keeps me organized.
I have never alphabetized the content warning list. Did you never notice that when I did them?
Well, I've always fixed them.
Oh my God.
So here's the thing. Is if I think about anything not being alphabetized or ordered, it makes me anxious. Like, my heart rate will start going up. It's my life.
Okay, well, maybe you could have told me and I would have tried to alphabetize it to prevent that, but I also would have been like, what the fuck do you want me to do? But I still would have tried to help.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, so we gotta get me to a doctor, but moving on, that's for another
Messy
day.
Doctor. You walk in his office and it's just everything is everywhere. The vaccines are in the fucking clipboard cabinet.
I'm not kidding. Like, disorganization actually makes me like nervous and anxious. I hate it. Anyway.
Well, I'm sure this completely organized view of history was great for you.
Yeah, it was real good. Okay, so this is what's printed on the back of the book. Chris is gonna take us away.
From America's #1 radio talk show host and multi-million copy #1 New York Times bestselling author, a book for young readers with a history teacher who travels back in time to have adventures with exceptional Americans. Meet Rush Limbaugh's really good pal, Rush Revere. That's in all caps, that's why I'm shouting. Okay, my name's really Rusty, but my friends call me Rush Revere, because I've always been the #1 fan of the coolest colonial dude ever, Paul Revere. Talk about a rock star. This guy wanted to protect young America so badly, he rode through those bumpy, cobblestoney streets shouting, "The British are coming," on a horse, top of his lungs, wind blowing, rain streaming. Well, you get the picture. But what if you could get the real picture by actually going back in time and seeing with your own eyes how our great country came to be, meeting the people who made it all happen, people like you and me. Hold on to your pointed triangle hats, because you can, with me, Rush Revere, seemingly ordinary substitute history teacher, as your tour guide across time. How, you ask? Well, there's this portal and a horse, my talking horse named Liberty, and, well, just trust me, I'll get us there. We'll begin by joining a shipload of brave families journeying on the Mayflower in 1620. Yawn, I don't think so. 1620 was a pretty awesome time, and you'll experience exactly what they did on that rough, dangerous ocean crossing. Together, we'll ask the Pilgrims all our questions, find out how they live, join them at the first Thanksgiving, and much more. So saddle up and let's ride. Our exceptional nation is waiting to be discovered all over again by exceptional young patriots like you. Paris, did you count the 10 lies in that summary?
Yeah, I actually only spotted one, which I think this is just a function of growing up in Massachusetts my entire life. But it's very unlikely that Paul Revere would have shouted, "The British are coming." He likely said, "The regulars are coming," because at that time, colonial Americans still considered themselves British. They'd only recently kind of, yeah.
The us are coming. The us are coming.
Yeah. So, if you think about it, it's obviously ridiculous. I think, yeah, it's just been, I think it was popularized in that, that poem that, who wrote that? Was it Longfellow? I forgot. There's a famous poem there's the poem that made Paul Revere famous, and in the poem it says the British are coming, but a lot of scholars have said that it's likely just because the meter was better for the poem, and there's no way he would have said the British are coming because he thought himself British.
Paris,
furthermore,
are you saying that perhaps this book has a very shallow look at what happened in history? Yeah,
that's a clue, listeners. There's already a falsehood or a misunderstanding in that back of the book summary. I
can give you another.
Which one?
The one where it says, join them at the first Thanksgiving and much more. That's where it ends. It ain't much more after that.
You're right. It does literally end immediately after the first Thanksgiving.
After the list of things that he listed there, after that, there's nothing. There's not much more.
Yeah. I was just going to say, it's, Paul Revere was one of many writers and many people who were part of the kind of revolutionary effort. Not that, no shade on Paul Revere. He was like a silversmith and dentist and whatever. He did a lot of stuff.
We previously encountered him in Johnny Tremaine.
We sure did. And I encounter him all the time because I live in we both live in Boston, so he's just everywhere. Anyway, no shade to him, but history has definitely, as it often does, made this kind of imbalanced view very popular, that somehow it was all Paul Revere when really there were several other writers and they all rode a long time. Actually, Paul Revere got fucking arrested that night. He didn't even make it very far. Anyway, you can read about that on the internet. We're going to talk about this book from Rush Limbaugh. I can't believe I'm saying that. Okay. Characters and setting here. Actually, Chris, why don't you do this? Because I'm going to read your summary in a moment.
Yeah, okay. So the first thing I want to say is the main character is Rush Revere, who I guess, according to the summary, is different from Rush Limbaugh. It's a separate Rush.
It's the same it's Rush Limbaugh.
Even though every cursed picture in this book, there are cursed pictures in this book.
Yeah, you know what this reminded me of? This reminded me of Melanie's Marvelous Measles.
Yes, very much.
It's very much the same. Anyway, yeah, we'll have to post some
every
pictures.
Shot of a character that's in this picture is they only had the face facing one direction, so they use that face that is always pointed towards the camera and never any other angle of it, photoshopped onto a sort of generic cartoon of a guy in a colonial outfit / the kids in a colonial. Anyway, speaking of what these kids are, you got Rush Revere, the main character / substitute history teacher. Mm-hmm. Then you have two students that he does a lot of time hopping with, Tommy and Freedom. Yes, there is a person named Freedom, much like there is a horse named Liberty, a talking time travel portal opening horse who's sort of the class clown / wisecracking character, trying to make all these jokes during the whole thing. Also very fond of food, as the easiest way to characterize any animal character that you write into anything, just obsessed with food. Then you got the Pilgrims. You got notable ones include William Bradford and Miles Standish, but it's that whole crew. You've heard enough about them, I'm sure. And then there are 3 natives of importance, I suppose, that pop up in this. There's more than them, but they are the ones that are named and have things that happen. You have Samoset, who was I think you say this, sachem?
Sachem. I would say sachem, but
a leader, some high up figure. In particular, Samoset was in the Pernaquid tribe.
No. He was Abenaki, and he was from Pemaquid, the area called Pemaquid.
The article that I read said Pernaquid was the tribe, and the Abenaki was a conglomerate of other tribes.
That does sound right. I just didn't know the Pemaquid was...
Anunnaki was a federation of ways.
Yeah, it's kind of like how the
tribes.
It's kind of like how the Wampanoag also are that way.
Okay, well, there's
that. Anyway, there's that. Yeah, native folks are complicated because there's people tend to group a bunch of them into one category when they're really a much smaller, different ones. Yeah. Speaking
of, you have Massasoit or Massasoit. Also a leader, but of the Wampanoag tribe, a tribe I am more familiar with, having learned about them in school, being from Massachusetts. And then you have Tisquantum, as he was really known, but also known as Squanto in some other writings, including this book. I'm not sure if that's a nice name for him or not.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably chosen by him from what I've read, because it basically means the wrath or something, or I forget. It's kind of a wild name.
All right. Yeah. He was a member of the Patuxet tribe, and he helped translate the English-speaking colonists to other natives in the land because he had spent time in Europe previously.
Yeah, after being enslaved, that's an important point.
I should probably say, he didn't just take a vacation. I should have been very clear about that.
It's okay.
Hey, Chris from the future here with a whole bunch of corrections on a lot of that stuff. So first of all, Samoset was not a sachem. He was a sagamore, which was a leader below a sachem. Permaquid is incorrect. It's actually Pemaquid, which is my fault, or my eye's fault, really, because RN usually looks like M to me, and I'll confuse M and RNs a lot. And anyway, Pemaquid was an area, not a people, within the Abenaki territory, which itself was one of 5 groups in the Wabanaki Confederacy. Also, Wampanoag wasn't a tribe, it was a confederacy of over 30 other smaller groups, including the Pokanoket, of which Massasoit was a part. And lastly, Tisquantum meant something like divine rage, although scholars are not 100% in agreement on that, while Squanto was a nickname likely given to him by William Bradford. Correction Chris from the future, out.
Yeah, so, all of that's roughly fine. All right, so in an effort to make these reviews less confusing, in the last year or two, we've been providing summaries, like our summaries of the entire story, and Chris has written our summary today. Rush Revere, aka Rush Limbaugh, is a substitute history teacher who dresses in colonial costume and brings a fucking horse into the classroom. Specifically, a horse named Liberty that can talk, time travel, and turn invisible by holding his breath. He uses his time-traveling horse to bring 2 students, Tommy and Freedom, back to various stages along the Pilgrims' journey from Europe to America, beginning with their decision to leave England, go to the Netherlands, and then sail across the ocean to America. Whenever the going gets a little rough, Rush and crew fuck off back to present times and time travel to the point after it sucked. Everyone back in the 1600s seems a-okay with the guy who keeps disappearing and reappearing, and also waves a smartphone around, like even beginning to try to explain what the thing does wouldn't result in Rush being burnt at the stake. The whole thing wraps up when Native Americans show up to help the Pilgrims out ahead of a harsh winter. They have a feast together, and then Rush and crew leave, because nothing worthwhile happened after that, right? They were all friends! Yay, America!
Yay, they were all friendly with each other. Hooray, they did nothing bad happened after that. Don't read about 1623.
Or,
Just don't go there.
No, don't go to 1623. Mm-mm.
Let's show the students that one.
So.
Okay, kids, I'm putting my time travel cell phone camera on.
Yeah, so there's a lot wrong with this book.
Why don't we start with the things that were good? Why don't we just start with the good stuff?
Yeah, you know what? I'll let you do this section, Chris.
Okay, so here's some stuff that was actually good in this book. It defined some ship and sailing terms, unlike William Hope Hodgson in the Carnacki series.
Yeah, like, he actually explains what a poop deck is. I don't have to sit here and ask Ken and sound like an idiot. He explains I forget what all these parts of the ship are, and it makes sense, and it's very clear. So that was good.
What is also good, the plot is chronological. And that's it.
Yeah, I guess the other thing, I might add a quick other thing that was good. This wasn't, I was really scared. Like, Rush Limbaugh narrating a children's book, I was like, fuck, this is going to be, it's going to be intense. And it's definitely bad and definitely has a lot of, problematic parts. But it was at least written in a way that was kind of just your general bland, shitty kind of American history take. It wasn't as outwardly offensive as Rush Limbaugh was as a person on the radio. So you
gotta really tone it down when you're specifically marketing it towards grade school children, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess so.
You want to just get them with the general whitewashing first, so then you can get them mad later when someone tells them, hey, it really wasn't like that. And they're like, but Rush Limbaugh said in the Rush Revere things.
Yeah, so
this is the first step in that.
Yeah, instead we just go with subtle untruths and outright lies and misunderstandings and misstatements of history. So,
and generally just not being around when things weren't so rosy.
Yeah. So the fun thing about having a time traveling horse is that you can just check in and out and only check in when it's calm and things are very comfortable for white people.
I mean, yeah, turns out when you can really just cherry pick moments to time travel to and from, you can paint a pretty rosy picture about what was going on in the Americas.
Yeah, makes history a lot easier when you don't have to tell all of it.
Yeah.
So this is launching us directly into the things that were not good, like so many children on time traveling horses through time portals. Just rushing.
Okay, so Paris is saying the catchphrase that opens and or really just opens the portal between. So if you're going back in time, you got the horse. Specifically the horse, I believe, has to say.
No. Rush says it.
Okay. Well, I guess that makes sense. Well, Rush has to say, rushing to history. And then when you're leaving because things suck, you say, rushing from history. So literally, we're straight up in this book, every time something that they didn't want to be around for was happening, they are screaming into the air, let's run away from history.
Yeah, it's like... It's just the most perfect fucking accident. It's just so
You don't think you're maybe like writing that down in the book sometimes? Like, I think maybe there's a message I'm not intending here, but...
Well, there was clearly no real fact-checking in this book, so... Or very surface-level fact-checking against other whitewashed books of history. I don't know. Okay, so, yeah, so let's just get right into it. This book does a great job of seeming historical and accurate because it does have some real facts in it. But, oh golly, does it really miss important points and certainly distorts history in the service of Rush Limbaugh's ideas about capitalism and kind of like American mythos. Chris, do you want to talk about this, and then I'll give you my little spin on it?
Okay, so like you think this is mostly just going to be the, first Thanksgiving tale about colonists coming to the Americas and interacting with Native Americans there, and then they all helped each other out and everything was cool. And that does happen in this book. That whitewashing happens. Mm-hmm. But it turns out that's not sort of the main idea that Rush Limbaugh was trying to sell here. It seems to mostly be about reading one letter that William Bradford sent that let people know that originally the Pilgrims decided to set up a sort of commonwealth system where able-bodied people farmed the land and produced the food and gained profit for the colony, because once again, this was a profit-seeking venture. The colonists had to pay back their debts they incurred by getting, the money to sail across here in the first place. But anyway, so it started as a commonwealth with the idea that the able-bodied people would work the land, get the food, and then they would then share that amongst the rest of the people in the colony. But pretty quickly into it, they decided to switch to a system where each family was individually responsible for growing their own food. And in the letter from William Bradford to, I forget who he was sending it to, but it might have been his journal, actually. He basically says, well, a lot of those men that were working felt it was unfair that the work they did went to the mouths of other women and children besides their own wife and children. And that was deeply unjust. And therefore we should switch to a system of individual farming so that we may grow and prosper further, but also mostly so I don't have to get mad about Jeremiah's wife eating the grain that I planted, which Rush Limbaugh uses to say, oh, so you see, America was founded on individual property rights from the beginning. And therefore, communism bad. Sharing, bad. Sharing of any kind, bad. It will only lead to people starving in the long run and hardship, because the only true way to organize a society is by making every man an island and individually responsible for themselves and their immediate family only. That's the best way to organize things.
Yeah, and of course, this is a great example of the intentional cherry picking of history here, because there's a couple things to note here. And one of them is that, I mean, this is the most notable, but the Pilgrims didn't switch over from Commonwealth style to this, like, I don't know, baby capitalism until 1624, which was 3 years after the fucking first Thanksgiving and the events of the book. So Rush's whole idea that killing socialism gave us prosperity and Thanksgiving is patently false. There's no other way to put it. I mean, I checked a few different scholarly sources, and they all seem to line up. So I don't know, they just didn't fact check his book or something. I'm not really sure what the fuck happened there.
I'm pretty sure he just read that one letter and drew all the conclusions from there.
Yeah. And furthermore, like, it took them 28 years to pay back the debts of their voyage. And in the book, Rush Limbaugh paints it as like, oh yeah, they moved from a commonwealth to a capitalist society and very soon paid off their debts. I don't know about y'all, but like 28 years isn't soon, last I checked.
Especially when your life expectancy ain't quite so long back then.
Yeah, it was like 28
That's a
years.
bigger percentage.
So, and I mean, that part is like a clear distortion, right? I mean, I don't think anyone would consider 28 years soon in the course of a human life in, the 1620s.
I mean, the second step from that is that, so they switched into that model, according to the letter, because the workers felt as if it was unfair to them. This is a cultural thing, right? It's not like legitimately they were all going to 100% starve if they didn't switch to the baby capitalism model. It's that the main reason was a bunch of dudes were like, I don't think it's fair.
Well, it wasn't really. It was sort of that. It was mostly... So this is something else to consider, is that they didn't switch to unbridled free market modern American capitalism, which is something that is lost on Rush and unfortunately lost on the reader due to his negligence. And that's why I was saying baby capitalism, because all they really did was move the labor from like everyone gets involved voluntarily to each person has a particular lot they have to work. And even then, Pilgrims had a really deep sense of community and taking care of their group in the service of God. So there's no fucking way that they would have been cool with, like, I don't know, let's say one person's farm was producing all the food and everyone else was really having a hard time. There's no way that they wouldn't have shared that one person. Stuff.
Yeah.
Like
that's
the picture...
basically the point I was coming around to.
Oh yeah, sorry, Chris, I didn't quite realize that. And there are even there's documentation proving that Bradford and Standish and the other leaders of the community were, they didn't do this as like a celebration of capitalism. They actually changed the system, and they felt it was an unfortunate kind of relenting to the weakness of the human spirit to be selfish, and they had to do it to survive. So it was actually quite a difficult decision for them, because it really felt like it went against the rest of their belief system. But they were like, well, we either give in to this bullshit and maybe don't die, or we probably mostly starve. So, this was a very pragmatic decision by leaders of the time. And again, this is a fucking wacky distortion of history, this whole thing in this book.
Yeah, did you read at any point something that said every family would be individually responsible for their own food? Because Rush sure harps on that point in this book. So
what they did is they were each allotted 1 acre of land. most people agree it was 1 acre. One portion, it was most likely 1 acre. And for the first couple of years, they were like, okay, we're gonna switch which parcel you have every year so that it would be fair. But then eventually, I think after like 3 or 4 years, they decided, we're not gonna do that actually, because that was just kind of more of a pain in the butt than they thought it was gonna be. But yeah, that is what they did. They basically said, hey, this is your lot. You are responsible for farming it.
But that doesn't mean that food would only go to that one family. They were just responsible for a specific...
I believe that is correct, from what I remembered. Yeah, it wasn't
so they were still sharing the food.
Yeah, they had to. I mean, they didn't have a whole lot. Like, there's not a whole lot that could have fit and survived the journey from England. And so, they kind of needed all the help they could get.
Trying to put it into like sort of a communal pot in a way to make sure everyone got fed.
Well, I think that it was one of those, like, you know, if someone's like, hey, I'm out of corn, you go to your neighbor and they'd be like, oh yeah, here, have some corn.
I'm sorry. Mr. Rush Revere came back in time to tell me that we shouldn't do that. So, sorry.
Yeah, Rush Limbaugh in this book also credits himself via his analog Rush Revere with like encouraging them to do this. He also
he caused a paradoxical time loop in which capitalism was sent back in time to start itself.
Actually, oh god, there's so many, I could go so many points in the notes based on that comment, but I'm just going to stick to the notes. The book does interchange the word Pilgrims and the word Puritans. Just an FYI, it's a common error, but they're not the same. Pilgrims came first in 1620. Puritans came later in 1630. They settled in different places. Puritans founded Boston. Pilgrims were in Plymouth, which is like south of there. So anyway, slightly different. Ended up, having different effects on history. So they're not the same, but they're similar. Notably, Pilgrims were separatists, and Puritans were typically more like revisionists. So some fucking semantics there, but important.
More nuance in that 10 seconds of explanation than anything in this book. I mean, again, it is for younger children, but I think we can find ways to even communicate those ideas with children. You can basically say, well, these people wanted to be completely apart from a church, and these people just kind of wanted to change a few things. I did it.
Right, and not to mention, like, there wasn't even a need to talk about the Puritans because all the events of this book took place in 1620 and 1621. So, like, there wasn't even a reason. It clearly, again, whoever edited this or wrote this with him just didn't do it right. So, and sorry, this is kind of an extension of what we were just talking about with how Rush Limbaugh sort of grafts his own modern ideas of, what America is and what patriotism and capitalism is and freedom, like, onto these people in very inaccurate ways. So there's a lot of like, oh, well, the Pilgrims came here to be free. And like, yeah, they came to North America to be free from religious persecution. But their sense of what like liberty and freedom is just totally not what Rush Limbaugh thinks it is, and not what we would consider it, in the modern day. Like for Pilgrims, liberty and freedom was considered like a responsibility to do the right things for your group, again, for your community, and to follow God. It was the freedom to follow God and do what was right, aka what was moral and just and Christian, essentially. It was like, it is just absolutely not like doing what you wanted and when you wanted. That was not freedom or liberty to them. That was heathenism, I guess. That, like,
there's a paragraph in this book where Rush Revere has a conversation with one of them and is like, well, wouldn't you consider it, bad if someone was telling you what to do, like the king was telling you what to do? And I think it's like William Bradford. He's like, yeah, you're right, Rush Revere. I should just make sure that everyone is in charge of their own food. that was like sort of the route that he took to convince William Bradford to like start his capitalism time loop, which I'm not walking away from, Paris, by the way. I hope you know this. We have to unravel this a little further.
Oh yeah, we're going to get there.
We got some bases to cover here.
So for once in my life, I'm actually demanding more God in a book because I just feel like the Pilgrims were just so A, extremely about God, and B, as a consequence of that, extremely about like self-denial. So
yes,
it's just
literally their whole thing is one guy telling them what to do, submitting to authority. That is like their entire thing.
Yes, and self-denial is such a big tenet of both the Pilgrims kind of variant of Puritanism and like the Puritans variant. So, which is, of course, by definition alone, purely antithetical to the ideas of personal freedom and doing whatever the fuck you want and killing people because you won't get vaccinated. Sorry, that's top of mind right now.
Yes.
So it's just, again, this is a major distortion of history that Limbaugh and et al. is doing in service to modern ideas. It's just propaganda. It's not history.
I mean, and he takes this basically, like I said, from that one historical source of the letter where William Bradford talked about how they changed the model of food distribution.
Oh, no, it wasn't. Sorry, I meant to correct you earlier. I actually think it's from Bradford's history, like the history that he wrote later in life of their journey and their settlement. I think it's actually from the book that he wrote about the time. So,
okay.
But again, it's like if you read more of that, and also if you read the other, there's like, it's Bradford's history, and then, there's another one.
My point being is that this is a classic example of one story from back then kind of supporting your point, so you just hold up that one and you never bother to look any deeper or wider or talk about it or bring up anything else that could possibly fuck with that narrative.
Yeah, so anyway, I actually feel like there's not enough God in this book. This might be the only time I ever say that because it's just so historically relevant. Like, if you want to understand the Pilgrims, they aren't the kind of people. So in Rush's history, the Pilgrims are like, oh, yay, capitalism saved us. It allowed us to have a great Thanksgiving. When in reality, like we already said, they didn't even move away from the Commonwealth system until well after that first Thanksgiving. And secondly, they thanked God for everything. To them, everything was an act of God. Everything was an instrument of God. There was no reason to thank anything else. Everything came from God. You can't, like, so to have, I mean, don't get me wrong, there are like some passages in the book where they talk about God, but like, it's really just, I'm telling you, it's not in there enough. It's just not, it's...
At least in the context of what motivated the Pilgrims, there is a little bit of like, and we were founded on the Christian God, and America has always had, it comes from God. There's a paragraph in there basically that kind of uses the argument of like, how would you know what's right to do without the guidance of God? That squeezes in there a little bit.
But it just didn't, but to me, like, it just didn't provide really the proper effect of...
Yeah, no, this is sort of the shallow interpretation of, Christianity's role in the founding of America, just to fit your narrative that, everything should still be Christian now, essentially. Without looking at the historical context of how it informed the motivations.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where we should go next, because there's so many things we can rush to. I
want to go right back to Rush Limbaugh, time paradox creator.
Okay.
Capitalism creator.
So Rush Revere in the book, there is a point where he basically he mandates that the kids who he's time traveling with, Tommy and Freedom, adhere to his doctrine of non-interference when time traveling, because the kids want to feed some people who are starving to death. and
Holy shit! Like, I just realized this juxtaposition, Paris. Jesus Christ!
And he says, "Oh no, we can't change history. Unfortunately, we just have to watch." So he's he's like, kids, we gotta adhere, to this doctrine of non-interference, which is, a common thing when you're dealing with time travel in fiction. And yet, he's like, don't feed those starving people, because what if they grow up and they don't fuck the right person and don't produce the right offspring to, I don't know, to fucking make Abraham Lincoln 200 years from that or whatever. So they don't. But then meanwhile, Rush and the kids are like interacting with all of these people. It's not like they're just invisible.
Expressly interacting with the people.
Like, my dude.
Offering no explanations for their random disappearances into the present and coming back later. And most notably, Rush Revere. So, okay, Paris, this kind of it moves at sometimes. He claims that I need to start back in the classroom here, actually, just to paint the proper picture.
All right. Rewind.
So, substitute teacher walks into the history class and says, all right, kids, it's time to learn some history with me, your teacher, Rush Revere. I'm in a silly colonial outfit. Oh, I'm the fun teacher here. Also, there's a horse in your classroom. Anyway, forget about that. I'm going to put a movie on for everyone while I leave and fuck off and drink in the park. I mean, travel through time. I'll be back. I get literally no explanation. He's just like, I'm leaving the room, and he pulls a projector screen down, sets it up, and then he leaves with the time traveling horse and the two children that are time traveling with him. So he's like, you two come with me while we fuck off, and the rest of the class watches a movie the whole time. So already we're starting with a very strange premise.
Oh, actually,
put that aside for a second. Just put that in the closet for a minute.
You know what? I think it's actually worse, because I think the first time that he travels with them, they're in detention after school. So it's literally just they're all alone, and he's like, "Come on, kids, get on my talking horse." And you're like, "Oh no, who thought this was good mood setting? This is awful."
Okay. Anyway, so they do this later on as well, and so Rush Limbaugh says, I'm going to put a movie on, kids. I've pre-recorded it. And then they jump into the time portal, and Rush Revere's cell phone is the video camera that is live streaming through fucking time and space.
What carrier is that?
Grade school classroom projector that Rush Limbaugh figured out how to do the fucking AV connections for a time camera? No, that did not happen.
Is that what the T stands for at T-Mobile? Is it Time Mobile? Do I have the ability to record through time?
Yes.
Fuck, I gotta try this.
So even let's even put aside the time camera that can stream 4K video through the fucking quantum realm or some shit. I don't know what's going on over there. But then, so Rush Revere has apparently on his lapel, just pinned there to stream back to the present day classroom, just showing this thing on his breast to every pilgrim and native that he walks by.
No, Chris, it's a button camera. He actually says that at one point.
That clears up a little bit, but still
not all of it. Mm-mm.
It's connected to his smartphone, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
In some fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, aside from that, the camera is picking up the feed of the two children that just left the room with Rush Revere. They are frequently in frame.
Right.
And no one in the classroom is like, hey, why are Tommy and Freedom in the new substitute teacher's history video? And also, they're not here right now.
Yeah, Chris, I cannot explain that.
They're I will accept, for the sake of a children's book, talking time traveling horse. I'm not going to sit here and yuck it up. Well, that's not supposed to work. That it's a children's book, whatever. I read fucking fantasy novels all the time. If there was a talking time traveling horse in my book with knights and swords in it, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's fine. So I'm not going to fucking sit here and criticize that in a children's book. But there's so many other things that makes absolutely no sense for someone to be like, hold on a second here, Mr. Revere, substitute teacher. I don't think it's okay for you to just leave the room with two students while the rest of us watch a movie that also those children are in.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's like with children's books or fantastical stuff, you either have to have a really good system or a very short list of fantastical things, because otherwise it just gets unwieldy. And yeah, you're just caught up in like, why would it be this way? I gotta say though, I actually do want to talk shit about the talking horse. So the talking horse, I was waiting for a good explanation, like a clever explanation for why the talking horse, especially when it's revealed that the talking time traveling horse was actually George Washington's horse. So he's not just a horse that's like from now. He's like a George Washington horse. So I'm trying to figure out like, how long has he been in the present day? How long do you live when you're flipping back and forth in time? And then secondly, the explanation offered for why he is a horse that talks and time travels is that he was struck by lightning.
Yeah, good enough. Cut print.
I mean, it's just the lamest thing. I mean, first of all, speaking English and time traveling, two very different abilities for a horse to suddenly have. You're trying to tell me that a single fucking lightning strike just bequeathed both of these abilities to this horse? Come on, man.
The
give me something
negatively
else.
charged particles are the speech English talking, and the positively charged ones are the time travel ones. Don't ask me where the invisibility came from. That's the neutrons.
Right. Sorry. 3. He also can go invisible. So I just would have much preferred, I don't know, like, I am an experiment horse.
Yes, like lab creature.
I came from a lab, from the U.S. government lab. They were trying to, I don't know, send things through time, and then they also wanted me to speak, so like...
No, he should have been, he's like, we just experiment on this one horse with all of the Black Ops projects.
Yes.
It's just, everything that we want to do, we do to this one horse.
And its name is Liberty. And like,
periodically through the book, Liberty's eyes would just go blank and glaze over. And you'd have to, like, shake him out of it.
Yeah, and Liberty has to, like, deal with the trauma of being a fucking experiment horse for the government. Yeah, dude, that's such a better explanation, in my mind. But anyway, I mean, that's like a half. That's not a real criticism. That's just a yuck. But, so let's also think again about how Rush and the kids just keep popping in and out of existence. And Chris, I know you said they didn't give any explanations, so he does give explanations. They're just very bad and obviously false. So,
I was exploring.
Yes, that's always his... Like, there's one time where, like, they pop to the Mayflower, and then they leave, and they don't come back for, like, 9 months. and everyone is like... Oh, where you been? And he's like, below decks for 9 months.
Around the ship lately.
Just behind
like
some
no
barrels.
One's fucking seen Rush Revere in 9 months on the one tiny ship. I mean, ships are pretty big, don't get me wrong, but it was also legit. They made a point to say it was really cramped down there because it was for cargo holds and there wasn't a lot of places for people to be. It's where can you escape to for 9 months?
Yeah.
Bro, I was just in the fucking engine room the whole time. Wait, there's no engine room. Fuck.
I was in a barrel. So I can actually confirm the tininess of the Mayflower because I've been on the Mayflower 2, which is the replica, because I don't know, I think the original Mayflower fucking fell apart a long time ago.
Everyone in Boston does that field trip, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm from a place even closer to Plymouth, so you can imagine I've been there many times. So.
I remember going to Plymouth Rock for a field trip, and they brought us up to Plymouth Rock, and it's a rock with, like, in the ground. There's, like, the big square cutout, and there's the rock. And I remember the teacher brought up, look, it's Plymouth Rock. And I was like, it's just a boulder.
Hey, so, I can confirm the Mayflower very small. Since you just brought up the fucking rock, we're gonna talk about it. So, as somebody who grew up sort of near Plymouth Rock, I have a particular hatred for it that I think
you go there every weekend and piss on it. It's just despite them.
No, I hate it because nothing about it is true.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that wasn't the rock in there. I'm pretty sure, like, even when I was in grade school, I was like, they just put a fucking rock in a hole.
No, so the thing about, like, nothing about it is real. So Plymouth Rock is it's just another one of these, like, American myths that people tell, and it has no basis in fact. So there was never any mention of a rock or a boulder or anything from any firsthand sources from the time. Apparently, how it all went down.
I knew it, they hoodwinked me.
So apparently how it all went down is in like the 1740s, there was an elderly man whose grandparents had been original settlers in Plymouth. And I guess in the 1740s, they were going to like build a pier or a bridge or something. And it was going to go over the rock. And this old guy like stands up in the town meeting and he's like, "You can't cover the rock. That's where the Pilgrims landed. That's where my grandpappy landed." And everyone's like, "Okay, Tommy, like, whatever." But then it just took on a life of its own. And so there's no historical documentation.
Okay.
There's no reason to think that
Paris,
that rock had any, I am still going.
Okay.
So there's no reason that rock had any significance. The date was carved into it like 300 years later or something in like the early 20th century. Furthermore, the Pilgrims first landed in fucking P-Town, in Provincetown on the Cape. So if anything, they were going to remember that first landing, because they only ended up in Plymouth because they were like trying to fucking sail to Virginia, and then they got stuck in some shit because, I don't know, our coast is hard to navigate, and they ended up in Plymouth. And like, also if you think about it, a big gnarly boulder is not really where, like, convenient to disembark onto from a ship. None of it makes a lick of sense. And yet people have just fucking snuggled this stupid rock to their...
It's not even that big of a rock.
Well, it isn't now. It used to be much larger, but it's been vandalized and broken apart over the years. So.
Paris, but okay, so what I just learned seconds ago is that I went on a fucking 2-hour one-way bus trip on a school field trip to look at a rock because of its historical significance, and that wasn't even fucking a historically significant rock?
No, the only significance it has is to further solidify the myth of American exceptionalism.
It was just some guy's fucking "don't pave over my house" excuse. I took a 2-hour bus trip because fucking... Yeah. Tommy from 1740s was like, "No, not here. I'm going to make a stink about it." And fucking 300 years later, here comes little Chris looking at this rock and going, "That's just a dumb fucking rock. It's not a real fucking rock. No one landed here." I knew it. I was like 10 years old and I knew it back then. I could smell the bullshit on this rock.
Yeah, you knew it. You had rock bullshit hypersets. Should have become a geologist, Chris.
Vindicated, Paris. I feel so fucking vindicated. Because like later in life, I was like, maybe you were kind of a little shit. You weren't appreciating the historical context. So thank you, Paris.
Chris. But cannot both things be true?
Oh shit!
Could it have been a bullshit rock and you were a little shit?
Oh shit! You're right. I can't whitewash my own history. I have to look at it from all sides. So, sorry. In all seriousness, I don't want to say that, like, there's, we can't give credence to oral history. Like, duh, of course we can. Like, the written word isn't the only thing we should care about. But it is quite suspicious that one man was the only one to have ever spoken about this by the time 1740 something rolled around. I mean, it's just very suspicious. And typically when we give value to historical things, they usually have a lot more corroboration around them, whether oral or written. So yeah, I think Plymouth Rock is bullshit. I think if you do want some, a nice old field trip, you should go to the Plymouth Patuxent Museum. Oh man. All right. So, what else do we have? We have a lot more stuff. I'm just trying to decide. I wasn't ready. Treatment of native characters.
Oh boy, yeah, this is the time. So yeah, Chris, why don't you begin that section of the evening?
Okay, here's going to set the tone here. So throughout the book, there's a couple of times where they are approached by someone native. The first few times they are approached was by Samoset, But it's just one guy walking along the forest, and the whole fucking town goes on alert, prepared for an attack by one person walking through the woods. This is, of course, set off by Miles Standish, who, you know what? I could kind of believe that Miles Standish would put the whole town on alert over that, to be honest with you. Even though there is this later on in the book sense of like, and then the natives and the colonists became friends and helped each other. Throughout the whole entire rest of the book, they are preparing for attacks from the natives. So it's this very like, well, I guess you can help us with food and stuff, but don't come anywhere fucking near us or we'll be ready to murder you. Which, spoiler alert, that happened later in real life. They don't mention that in the book. There was a massacre committed by Miles Standish and some militiamen in about 1623 when they lured a bunch of native peoples to the colony and then stabbed them all to death in cold blood. They don't really go over that in this book.
Oh, and then even better, Standish was such a fucking asshole that he actually put the leader, I think his name was Wituwamat. Wituwamat. He was Neponset. He put their leader's head on a pike and left it on like in front of his house or on top of his house until the head was bone. And you know, actually, coincidentally, Boston University?
Yeah, it's BU.
BU has a building called like Miles Standish Hall, and people were like, yeah, can we maybe not call it that? So there's a petition going around right now to try to rename it, I believe, Wituwamat Hall, I think.
signed that petition after I read this book and saw that petition was going around. Very timely.
Yeah, and like, FYI, you might be thinking, oh, well, you know, Standish was the military leader. He had to protect people. Whatever. These natives probably had it coming. Nope. There was no actual evidence of a plot. Standish was just an asshole. So, yeah, I mean, he quarreled with a lot of people even then, even when this happened. Like, the current pastor was not happy and actually wrote to Bradford, who became the governor eventually, about how Standish shouldn't be in charge anymore. He's too violent to the native people, you know, and didn't live up to the Pilgrim standards. So, yeah, we have a very, very different perception of Miles Standish now than even the Pilgrims did at the time. And certainly very different than what this book paints. I mean, I'm sure this is at the beginning kind of their time together, but it's just a little irresponsible to kind of just say, yeah, Standish, real cool guy.
Yeah. On this topic of treatment of natives here, the second thing that I wanted to bring up was that similarly in how the book tries to have you believe both that everyone was friendly and nice to each other, but also they were totally prepared for native attack at any moment, there's also this same kind of double standard thing happening where very frequently the colonists will bring up, oh, we have all this untamed, unsettled land before us.
Yes. It's all just cleared for us. Weird.
Yes, yet clearly there are native peoples there that you are interacting with. It is not unsettled.
Yeah, and then it's weird because the book will be like, oh, wow, all this pre-cleared land. Definitely no one here. Wow, God must have cleared this land for us. And it's like, don't you think it's more likely that it was just these other people who you keep talking to and seeing? Like, don't you think it was maybe
the
them?
people that were here before you?
Yeah, turns out it was Squanto's community that was ravaged by plague, unfortunately, and they all died. So that's why everything was like cleared and looked like a good place to build, because people had lived there before.
That's like mentioned in the book, by the way. The plague that went through there is mentioned there before, and Squanto, and I think it's Samoset actually, that it was his people that were from that area. Or was it Squanto?
It was Squanto.
Okay, it was Squanto.
Because Squanto was kidnapped and enslaved, was taken to Spain, where
right, yes.
Catholics were like, we don't actually like slavery. What the fuck? Like, basically, some dude captured him and a bunch of others, tried to sell them in Spain, and Spain was like, no thanks. And so some Catholic friars helped Squanto escape. Somehow, he ended up bouncing around all over the place. He was in Newfoundland. He was in England. And then eventually made his way back to North America, which is just wild that he actually accomplished that.
Because he comes back and interacts with the Pilgrims, and he's like, yeah, this is Deathland. This is bad land that is bad. you guys should... So I'm going to help you guys live on the land as long as you're not mean to us. Oh, shit. You stabbed us all.
I just think it's funny that he was like, yeah, this is the graveyard of my family. And they're like, we'll build here. And he's like, no. Oh, never mind. So I guess, I don't know, even like Squanto's real story is kind of also quite a bit different than I think people realize, you know. It's not like he was, you know, the book, of course, paints him as like the good, you know, noble native who shows them how to plant stuff and helps them translate, and is just totally motivated by, you know, I don't know, he's like divinely sent to them or whatever. But like in reality, he was kind of in like a weird spot and was just trying to get some advantage for himself in a way. Because, you know, he was like captured, sold into slavery, and then finally gets back, finds all of his people dead. So, I forget, I think he was actually a captive of Massasoit, but he was, you know, he spoke English fluently, so he was pretty valuable as an, you know, at this time. I think he was like trying to, I think he was actually captured. He was like their prisoner, sort of, and he was trying to like get out of that situation, which is why he was being so cool with the colonists, because he was like, oh, these people don't know what the fuck's going on. I can hang with them, and, you know, seems like they're okay. At least from what I remember. I'm sorry if I'm wrong about that, but that is like my base memory on Squanto's Deal. Squanto's
Deal, the new game show.
Well, I guess I just wanted to point out that it was, you know, it's more complicated. It just like how the, you know, their interactions with the colonists are more complicated. The native people as individuals were more complicated than you know, a lot of the American history likes to suggest.
It's time to play Squanto's Deal. You get a chance to be enslaved and be sent to Europe, or come back to your plague-ridden family graveyard.
Oh.
Squanto's Deal.
Oh. Or third option, go hang out with these weirdos. Yeah, I'm gonna take the weirdos. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna go with the weirdos. I'm like, all right.
Thanks for playing Squanto's Deal.
Anyway, moving on.
I think we covered most of the extra native notes that are in here.
No, actually, we forgot a really big one. So remember how we were talking about a character named Freedom?
Yeah.
So Freedom is an nondescript Native American child with, you know, I guess stereotypically so, with shiny, straight, long black hair, and I guess that's the only thing he really says about her physical characteristics. But she always has a feather clipped into her hair. She is the only one who can see Liberty the horse when he is invisible. She can also communicate telepathically with him and other animals, and furthermore, she can make other animals do her bidding.
It's this again.
Yep, it's time for another round of...
0 days since magical natives.
Yeah, it has been 0 days since a native person has been deemed magical. All right, everyone.
This is still part of Squanto's Deal, and it really sucks every single time. All these doors just open to fucking hatefulness and stereotyping.
Oh, man. Yeah, this is... Why? Who makes this game? Parker Brothers. Don't publish this
I was
game.
imagining more of it as a televised thing. You reduced it to the board game. Board games are more fun than TV game shows, I would say.
Anyway, yeah, it's been 0 days since we've been affected by the magical native stereotype, and I gotta say, it fucking sucks. You know, it's like, why can't why can't freedom just be a student who happens to be indigenous but can't talk to animals? Maybe she's really good at repairing cell phones. I don't know. Like, this fucking constant idea that anyone with indigenous ancestry is somehow trapped in the past and they have to commune with nature. It's like, come on, people. It's just not real. It's not reality. It just sucks to keep seeing it again and again and again. They also, I mean, and this is like another point that, of course, indigenous people are not a monolith. Native Americans are not a monolith, but I know some Native Americans are okay with identifying as Indians or American Indians, but most of the time they like to be called Native people or Native Americans or Indigenous Americans.
Keep saying that, it's not because that's what the book says.
No, the book just calls them Indians all the time, which just doesn't feel great. And again, this is like, a differing, perspectives on this differ, but I think the majority opinion is that, like, that's not a great word to use because that's not, wasn't a self-assigned descriptor, and it was also incorrect because, of course...
Because they're not from fucking India. You're not in India. You even knew you weren't in India because you called it America, but still.
I know. So anyway, that's kind of... Oh, sorry, I should specify that it's not the Pilgrims using this word. It's Rush Limbaugh and the kids, like, in the modern day. That's why it's kind of like, maybe not the best choice, Anyway, I don't know. They also can't decide whether they want to spell Samoset with an A, Samoset, or Samoset. And that was
I think this is another symptom of Paris brain here, Paris, where you have to, like...
I do. I'm sorry.
When I'm so deep into a book like this, that stuff just glances off me. I can't let it affect me because there's so much worse stuff
you have to survive. About. So speaking of so much more stuff to think about, so why wasn't Rush Revere hanged for witchcraft?
We already brought up the whole cell phone camera thing, and he's trying to. I discreetly brought out my smartphone to take pictures, but I don't know, man. It's like pretty. You weren't that you were pretty nonchalant about it the whole time.
Yeah, I just don't think that there's any way that he wouldn't have been murdered for witchcraft, because not only is the smartphone a problem, he also at some point tells someone that he's a time traveler from the future. And I was like, dude.
Oh, yeah, what's this about this whole non-interference thing here? Oh, but you're just going to tell them, oh, no, we can't help that starving child, but I feel cool when I tell people I'm a time traveler, so I'm going to let that one slide.
Yeah, not to mention, there's also just the tacit implication of witchcraft when he is on the Mayflower and then not for months at a time, and then reappears on the Mayflower. I mean...
No, they were totally cool with that. He was just hiding under the poop deck, that's all.
Yeah, he was just in a barrel. So I think...
But, Paris, imagine... I just want you to think about a situation where you are time traveling in the past and you have a smartphone on you. I would hide that thing up inside my body so far that no one would ever have a fucking chance of seeing that, because if you for a second get caught with that thing, imagine trying to explain for the first fucking second what you are currently holding. Oh, it's this thing with the screen. Oh, you don't know what a screen is. Oh, it's like it has a camera. Oh, shit, that doesn't work either. It's like a phone. It's like a typewriter. No, not really.
So for me, like, this book really should have been about 2 chapters long, and it would have ended with Rush Revere's crackling flesh and screams as he is burned at the stake, because he would not have survived this long in 1620. With all of his time travel and smartphones and weird, like, modernized concepts of things. Not to mention, they don't mention this, but the way people talk now is not quite the same as how people spoke in 1620. It's quite different, I would actually say. So it's, that alone would kind of paint you as sort of weird. I just don't... Yeah, so in summary, Rush Revere should have burned at the stake.
You want to just go through some odds and ends at this point, Paris? Because I feel like that's what we got left here.
Yeah. Remember when William Bradford and Miles Standish offered to make Rush Limbaugh the governor of their colony?
Oh yeah, I remember that part.
Because at this point,
the
it's just historical fan fiction.
Self jerk off that you could throw in there.
Yeah, it's just historical fan fiction with Rush Limbaugh.
Thank you for giving us the idea of capitalism, Rush Revere. I guess we should make you governor and king of the colony. No, see, I am just, and I will not accept this, and I will go back to my present day with toilets and running water, you see.
Chris, so actually, we're going to go back to the beginning of the book. Right at the towards the beginning, there's an explanation of like how Rush Revere and Liberty the Talking Horse met. And it explains that Rush Revere is walking out of the iced tea factory where he's a mascot and somehow bumps into the time-traveling horse or whatever. Because the horse sees him in the colonial outfit and is like, oh, that's familiar, you know. But, you know, I was like, oh, of course, haha, iced tea factory, like the Tea Party, whatever. I was like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing there. Chris, did you know that iced tea was real?
Yes, I did, Paris. And I wanted you to find it out for yourself.
Did you know that he and his wife had an iced tea operation called 2 If by Tea?
Oh, okay. I didn't know that part. Also, when you said iced tea operation, I thought surgical for a second. And I was like, whoa, what happened there? Can I get this surgery if this just like replaces my blood with iced tea?
Well, I mean, you were saying you needed to find somewhere to hide the smartphone in like a cavity. So I think you get like an iced tea bladder and then the phone slides in there and it's protected.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Can we get that lady from the last book with her like biology knowledge to do that to me? I don't want to be like a whole bag of organs, just like have one extra organ bag that I can just kind of put stuff in. Just an organ pocket. That's just my butthole, right? That's what this is.
Yeah, it's a flesh pouch.
I just want a second butthole where poop doesn't come out.
Back to the iced tea. So
just gonna leave that
this book, sorry, I'm just gonna ruthlessly get through the rest of these points in this episode. So I just can't fucking believe that Rush Limbaugh and his wife were like, hey, we gotta try to sell our iced tea though to these middle school kids. We gotta make sure it's in there. Oh man.
Gotta respect the hustle, right? Just constantly looking for a way to
No,
sell it.
I don't. Also, I went to the website
the
and
hustle will be disrespected.
Yeah, I went to his website and the Rush Limbaugh store is closed, probably because he's dead. But like, I don't know. You would think that the rest of his family would want to still reap the Rush bucks, right? So it's
he had the keys to the tea stash, Paris. You don't understand. There's somewhere out there is Rush Limbaugh's tea treasure trove.
There's just a factory that's locked up and no one's ever going to be able to get in there.
I'm going to find it and rebrand it so I don't have to worry about drinking Rush Limbaugh tea because I do like iced tea.
Me too. There's this. Oh, Chris, you just have. So when you said some really good ones. So they go back in time, and you know, of course, we got to talk about how weird the food was. Because you know, gotta fetishize everything. Gotta be weird about everything. And they, you know, Rush takes Tommy and Freedom back in time, and they decide that there's no food because none of the 3 food groups exist.
Yes. The way it's put is that Rush Revere is trying to impress upon these children exactly how different the food landscape is. So he says, no McDonald's, no Taco Bell, no Kentucky Fried Chicken, nothing.
There's no
And it's supposed to instill horror upon the children. Oh no, there's no food anywhere? I don't know. How do they even do anything if there's not a McDonald's or a Taco Bell or a Kentucky Fried Chicken? How do they live?
Yeah, and they're supposed to feel very lucky because they have access to
the
modern
3 food
fast
groups.
food.
The 3 food groups of McDonald's, Taco Bell, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
So wait, so do you
Those
think
are
it's
your 3 choices?
Do you think it's a pyramid or is it just more of a Venn diagram or like?
It's a pyramid. So you want to have
what's the base?
The
KFC?
base is McDonald's for sure.
Okay.
Because it's ubiquitous and it's everywhere. Then on top is Kentucky Fried Chicken, because fried chicken is great tasting and finger looking good. And Taco Bell's on top because that's the vegetarian option, and you shouldn't have that many vegetables if you're an American.
That's okay. I'm going to agree with you because we all know how much I love
Also, it's
the
not
Bell.
truly American because taco. So if you're going in order of like freedom level,
yeah, you're
it's
right.
McDonald's,
You're right.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
You're right.
Taco Bell.
The freedom pyramid is
the freedom
definitely.
food pyramid.
Remember, kids, get your 70%.
Get your 4 to 6 McDonald's servings every day.
Yeah. Wait. What are the servings? Wait. What's considered a serving? Is it like I have to have a whole hamburger, or can I have like a sweet and sour sauce? Can I have a hash brown?
It's one full meal, Paris. It's.
Oh.
You get 3 servings because you get the burger, the fries, and the drink. So that like one meal is 3 servings of your required 4 to 6 McDonald's servings. You should be getting at least a breast and a thigh.
Okay,
every day.
At least two chicken, and then 1 Bell.
Yeah, just like, a cup for a treat. You want to have like 1 cheesy roll up, like a gordita maybe if you're going extra on it.
Yeah. Okay.
I like that you walked right by my breast and thigh once a day joke there without a fucking blink.
No, I'm sorry. We were talking about chicken. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that about you, Paris.
For once, my brain did not go elsewhere. All right, folks. Make sure you're getting your McDonald's and KFC and the Bell. Speaking of food. It's kind of weird because they're talking about how they're starving. But then I think it's actually when Samoset shows up. They're like, "Oh yes, have a meal." And they hand him a plate of roasted duck, pudding, a biscuit, butter, and cheese. And I was like, aren't they starving? I was just a little
confused. They cut the duck up specifically for Samoset and Rush. Because Rush Revere came strolling back in after his exploring session for the last year or so.
Yeah, I guess I was, and I'm part of me is rationalizing it in the whole like, you give your guests the best you have sort of thing. And but there's like further questions because the Pilgrims they weren't able to bring all that much shit with them. Like we've already talked about how kind of packed tight the Mayflower was with a fucking 120 people and whatever else they had. And we know for sure that they did not bring horses or cows, like no large livestock. The only animals that we for sure know that the Pilgrims brought over with them were a spaniel and a mastiff. So 2 dogs. That's all we got. But the assumption is that they must have brought like chickens and pigs and goats. But there's, but nothing bigger than that. So I guess they could have had some like hard cheese because hard cheese lasts a long time. But how long could butter possibly last? And then I started thinking, did they make goat butter? I don't know, because like I know that they assume that they probably brought butter with them. But I'm like, how fucking long does butter last? I just can't get that out of my head. I'm like,
this so much more than Rush Limbaugh did, Paris.
How long? You know what? How long does butter last? I mean, because this is before pasteurization. So, not pasteurized.
Did you just Google how long does butter last and it was like fucking forever? Let's go.
No, it said 1 to 3 months, but then I said how long does butter last not pasteurized? It only lasts 10 days in the refrigerator. So I don't know. I'm still like, how did they have butter? Someone explain to me. How did the Pilgrims bring butter? Because there was like, I remember some of the reading I did, it was like, oh shit, they bought a ton of butter. But then they had to sell a bunch of it before they left to like pay for other stuff. So they did have some butter on the Mayflower, and presumably it did make its way over. But like, they were on that ship for fucking, I don't know, 10 weeks? I think longer than that?
Couple months.
Wait, I'm now remembering that I said 9 months earlier. I meant 9 weeks. That's still too long to be missing on a ship. My apologies.
Yes.
But yeah, all right, butter people out there, the butter people.
The butter people are out there. What? Paris. Where are the butter people coming from?
I just need to know. I need
the alternate
answered.
Time paradox. They're the time police. They're slippery enough to get through the time dimensions and police the fucking paradox that Rush Revere caused. I'm getting down to the bottom of it this episode, Paris.
I don't know. I'm really curious about this. Does anyone out there know? In the 1600s, before pasteurization and before refrigeration, how long would butter last? I need to know.
Also, could you make butter people out of it? And do they control the time stream?
Also a question we need to know. We need to answer. You know what, Chris? You know what we haven't done? We haven't actually read any passages from this.
That's true, Paris.
Fucking literary monstrosity.
I think that might be a nice way to wrap up the meat of this episode.
Yeah, I think we've got two sections that I would love to read. One is about this whole Rush Limbaugh creates a capitalism time loop. And that is on page 128. So Chris, let's head over to page 128. Let's rush to page 128.
And away from any context that history could provide.
Yes, away.
All right, so this is somewhat of a lengthy passage, but I'll do my best to get through it with you, with all of you.
I believe in you.
I heard you mention a common house. What is that? I asked. William pointed to the frame on the ground and said, "This will be the common house. It is one of the first buildings. It belongs to everyone. We've agreed to set aside our want of personal property or personal gain and instead create a community where the houses and buildings and profits belong to everyone. We are trying to create a fair and equal society." I thought of the Pilgrims on the Mayflower. These were tough, strong, and independent people. I thought of them as self-reliant and ambitious. People who came to America to start a new life, build their own homes, work for themselves, and be free people. But what William Bradford was explaining to me seemed like the opposite. Certainly, it would be tempting to live in a society where everything is shared and all your choices are made from you. But is that freedom? With some courage, I decided to meddle with the time stream and forever create a time... No, with some courage, I asked William, "You say you're trying to create a fair and equal society. Do you think your people will find joy and happiness with this kind of common control? Real non-interfering here, Rush." William sighed and said, "It will be a test for sure. At first, the common house seemed very attractive. This kind of control should guarantee our prosperity and success. But recently I'm beginning to doubt whether everyone will work their hardest on something that is not their own," William said. "All these men are working on the same project," said Miles. "All week they've used axes and saws to fell trees and transport them to this site. The trunks will be woven together with branches and twigs and then cemented with clay and so forth. Some men do little and some men do a lot. When this house is finished, who deserves the benefit and blessing of having this roof over their head?" I pondered the question. Was there a right answer? Certainly no one should be left out in the cold, but at the same time, it didn't seem fair for everyone to be rewarded equally when people who were able to work chose not to. I finally said, "You're right. I think this will be a test, but I know you are both wise enough to figure it out." "A fine answer," Rush Revere said, William smiling. "Are you sure you don't want to be governor?" "Not me. You'll make a fine governor," I said to William. "If you'll excuse me," I said, "I'm going to track down Tommy and his friend and make sure they're okay." So that's like part one.
I think that's good. I would like to read the section about what's the point of doing anything unless you can be better than everyone else.
Good.
This is like another... There's so many moments in this book where I'm like, someone would have been like, "Witch!" Like, so many of my notes are just "witch" in all caps because he just slips up and says something like, he's talking to William Bradford, like, alone in his house, and he goes, "Yeah, I've learned much and hope to be able to share it someday with my history class." And it's like, history class? What? We don't have a school yet. What are you talking about? What's a history class? Like, it's like Witch. So this is Rush talking to William Bradford. "It's great to see the settlement growing." "Yes, it's growing," said William, "but not as fast as it could." Why is that? I asked. Do you not have enough trees or supplies to build houses? Well, no, not exactly. I can't remember if I told you while we were on the boat or not, but we have a contract with our sponsors in England, the ones who helped us pay for this voyage. The contract says that everything we produce or harvest, like food, furs, furniture, etc., must go into a common store, and each member of the community is entitled to one common share. Eventually, we hope to make enough to pay back our sponsors in England, but I'm finding it difficult to get our people to work. I pondered his comment and said, so you're saying that everything that is produced, all the profits, go into, let's say, a box, and then everyone gets one equal share of what's in the box, regardless of how much work they do or how much they produce? Correct, said William. And some people figure that it doesn't matter how much they work because they're still going to get an equal share of what's in the box. I can't really blame them. I mean, what is the incentive to work hard if you know the other person will get the same reward doing little to no work? That doesn't seem very fair, I said. I thought about Tommy's football coach and the question he asked all the boys after practice. He said, what would you think if two teams playing against each other get the same amount of points, regardless of how many touchdowns they make? The boys booed the coach, and Tommy asked, what's the purpose of playing if nobody can win? The coach replied, exactly, so get out there this Saturday and play hard. Play to win. There are a few of you who think you don't have to play hard to win a championship. Some of you think you deserve part of the trophy, even though you're not giving your best effort. I'm here to tell you that if I see slackers out there, I'm cutting you from the team. And if you don't think that's fair, then you don't understand what it means to be a champion. Then the coach led them in the chant, play to win, play to win, play to win.
God.
I'm trying not to vomit as I'm reading this. I then thought of the Pilgrims. They initially tried to make everyone winners, but soon realized the attempt was failing because not everyone wanted to work hard enough to be champions. The truth is, when we try to make everyone a winner, no one's a winner.
Oh, yeah, such a deep, fucking nuanced take on things there. All right, first of all, there's plenty of reasons to play if there's no one keeping track of the winner, like socialization, exercise, just going outdoors to have a good time. I've kicked a ball around plenty of times without keeping score. I had a good time because I was with my friends doing something. That's not to say a little competitive spirit ain't bad. I think, fine, keep score during games and everything, especially when you're literally like it's a sports league. Sure, fine. But not every football match out there has to be scored. And also using this as a metaphor for sharing food and goods is terrible because it doesn't have to be a game. It doesn't have to be a competition.
Yeah, like...
A football game is a football game. Society doesn't have to be a football game.
Like, football game, trying not to starve to death. Two different things. Very, very much not the same. By the way, this is the section where he convinces Bradford to go to capitalism.
By mentioning football, by the way, he brings up the football thing, and William Bradford's like, I should like this football. No, instead of being like, what the fuck, you witch motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's how the Pilgrims talked, by the way. They lived in Boston, so they were very crazy.
Well, no, the Pilgrims didn't. The Puritans did. But there's actually...
There's a fucking witch.
There's actually a witch moment pretty soon when Tommy all of a sudden, he starts talking about salsa, and Bradford's like, salsa? And I was like, witch!
How many of the ingredients of salsa would William Bradford have even known about? Probably knew about tomatoes, right?
Tomatoes come from North America, so
recently have discovered tomatoes, if at all.
No, I think tomatoes came in the 15th century. So, am I right about that? Were tomatoes the 15th century? When did tomatoes?
When did tomatoes come to America?
No. Come to Europe. Come to Europe. Tomatoes are from America. Everyone thinks about tomatoes as Italian, but they're not. They're from fucking North America. Or they're from the Americas, excuse me. So...
the most patriotic fruit there is, then.
Yeah. I guess tomatoes came to Europe in the 16th century. So yes, at this point they would have known about tomatoes, but a lot of people were not into tomatoes for like a variety of reasons. So one, tomatoes were first ornamental. There's like some videos you can watch on YouTube, but for a while people thought tomatoes were poisonous, but they're not. There was some confusion due to their acidity making lead plates leach out lead and kill you. They were like, oh, the tomatoes are evil, and then it took a long time before they were like, oh, the plates were evil. Yeah.
Oh. I mean, I was going to say it's not so incorrect, right? It is like the interaction of the tomato and the plate that is murdering you, so like the tomato is kind of to blame.
The tomato is a catalyst for murder, but it's an accomplice. The tomato's an accomplice here.
Plate tomato murder squad.
I mean, again, this is like a hazy memory from some YouTube
oh my God,
deep dive
this has gotta
I
be
did.
like some fucking like A-plot and some low-rent cop procedural out there. It's like there was a murder at the historical society thing. He put a tomato on a plate with lead in it, and then they ate from the plate, and that performer died. It was revenge
I think you have to,
because the butter people came once and for all to undo the time.
through the capitalism time loop. Oh no.
It's all coming together on this episode.
It's all coming together.
NCIS. Plymouth.
CIS.
NCIS, I said.
Oh, I thought you just said CIS, and I was like, Chris, what are you... Crime investigation scene.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Paris.
Well,
I think we can... You got anything else to bring up here?
No, I think we can rush away from any confrontation of harsh truth.
Yes, let's do that. And right into... Oh no, it's the patron list. Watch out! Can we fix it? Yeah, read a history textbook instead. That's how you fix it.
I would actually suggest a great textbook, or I don't know. I don't know if it's great. I thought it had a lot of helpful information in it. It's called The Myths That Made America: An Introduction to American Studies. So this talks about the Pilgrims, the Puritans, Pocahontas, and John Smith. Like, goes over kind of all that classic shit that you learn about, and it explains how all of it was wrong, using, firsthand accounts, which is always what you should be doing with history. Yeah, and like Chris said earlier, I mean, yeah, I know this book is for kids, but it doesn't mean you have to avoid hard subjects like colonialism and racism and genocide and, fighting and all this stuff. You can have people. Both the butter people.
Tommy, I need you to sit down. We have to talk. You know the stuff in the fridge?
We gotta it's time to talk about the butters and the buns. But sorry. Anyway, sorry. My point here is that no matter the audience, you can have both things. A lot of people think, or rather, a lot of people want history to be like one way or the other, right? And especially with children, like they always want it to be the most sanitized. They want to gloss over anything quote unquote bad. But in reality, history is not really an either or. It's really more of an and situation. Like Chris was just saying, most of history is like both things are true, or both things you think you want to choose between are kind of true. For example, sure, the country that we currently live in, the United States of America, did have its, its kind of foundational times among these European pilgrims who were escaping religious persecution. And they also murdered, mistreated, and ultimately committed genocide against indigenous people. Like, these things are both true. You can't tell a historical tale or an accurate one without talking about both things or all things. And that being said, there are moments in this book and too many others like this book where there are just straight up lies to make, most people who are reading it, i.e. white Americans, feel zero discomfort.
This is the part where I say the very start of the book starts with, "We live in the greatest country that ever that's the first line.
Yeah, American exceptionalism through and through. And don't mistake us here. We're not saying you can't feel patriotic or enjoy living in America, but you can't just put your little blinders on and just think that America is all there is. The world, I don't know if you've noticed, the world's a very large planet with billions of people on it that live in vastly different places, and to think that, America is the best of them is just short-sighted, right? I just
It's also
think
naive. It's just naive.
Yeah, it's really naive and a little silly, honestly. And why is it a competition? Why do we have to be like, oh, there is a country that is the best? Like, maybe there are 20 countries that are all kind of equivalently good in different ways. Maybe none of them are the best. Maybe all of them are the best for certain people,
Paris, what's the point of being a country if I can't win?
What's the point of being alive if I can't win, Chris? I want to win at life. Anyway, like, the founding of, this kind of white Western version of America was a grim time. Frankly, still a grim time 400 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, like, depicting Native people and honestly, even Pilgrims as kind of simple, one-dimensional caricatures that only serve your modern fucking propaganda needs. It's just an irresponsible thing to put in a book, especially for children. So, yeah, we can fix it.
All right. It's time to thank the people that brought us this wonderful trip through time. It's the patrons.
Well, thank you, Martin, for recommending this. Actually, I forgot to say, this is a fucking series. This is the first of several of these monstrosities. Thank you, Martin. I think this is actually a good choice for us to read because it allowed me to be a huge nerd and reread a bunch of stuff I had sent around from college and, reminisce about New England history, which, as New Englanders, I think we're wont to do. So,
allowed me to uncover the truth about the butter people.
Chris, if you say butter people one more time, we're going to be on the list.
That's true. I got to shut up about it now. Okay, no more.
No more. But thank you to the rest of our patrons. Thank you to Dari, Greg, Veronica, Will, D, Jared, Lynn, Sinya, Yakub, Bobby Blackcat, Like Horace, Elliot, Kieran, Jay, Scott, Luchek, CTAP1, Miri, Yanka, David, Julius, Anya, Anonymous, Patricia, Tommy Wiseau, and Donnie. Thank you all for supporting the show.
Thank you very much.
And get ready. Next episode is also a Patron's Choice episode from actually we'll I guess we'll tell them on the episode, but next episode is also a Patron's Choice, and we are going to be going in a wildly different direction. So sure,
rushing away from this bullshit.
Yeah. If you also want to help support the show, you of course could become a patron to access bonus content such as videos of us, Mystery Science Theater 3000 style commentary, outtakes, and other random audio-visual weirdness. You can subscribe to us on YouTube and watch some stuff, leave a comment, like a video. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads if you are on those platforms. Otherwise, you can contact us via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Goodreads, Patreon, or through the Gmail. You can send an email to terriblebookclub@gmail.com. Most importantly, though, we'd just like it if you shared the show on social media, told some people to listen to it, or wrote us a review. Those are always fun, and if you write us a review, we will read it on a future episode.
Thank you very much, patrons and listeners. Hope you're having a good start to your autumn. I am excited for colder weather. And we have the schedule's packed for the rest of the year, I think, Paris. I think we know the path we will take through the rest of it.
Yeah, I'm actually having trouble. Yeah, we have too many things to read. The schedule is pretty backed up. So if you want us to read something, become a high-level patron and it will jump to the front of the line. But otherwise, you will be waiting years, in some cases, literally, not a joke.
I will say that there is a special episode of Terrible Book Club coming sometime soon, I believe.
Chris, is it the history of the people I cannot name?
No.
I'm sitting here going, fuck, what is Chris talking about?
It's TBC Boys Club.
Oh, yeah. And I guess we didn't have an episode at the time, but I was recently on an episode of Antiques Freaks, which was really fun. It was just me and Dee, and we did an episode, or rather, Dee educated me about uranium glass, which I actually love. It's one of my favorite kinds of antiques. And Chris is going to be doing some fun stuff with Ken. I forget what y'all are doing.
I'll leave it a secret. I'm just going to say that there's going to be, at some time in the future, a boys club, boys only, no girls allowed, Terrible Book Club episode. Don't come into our pillow for it.
Yeah. So if you want to hear me be really confused by and ask inane questions about uranium glass, that episode of Antiques Freaks came out, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. So go find it. It's a good time.
Yeah, rush to that other podcast.
Rushing to the butter people.
All right, Barris. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Good night. I think my favorite, like, weirdo false thing that he peddled was that Eyjafjallajökull in Iceland, remember that volcano? Mm-hmm. It erupted, like, right after the Affordable Care Act was signed into law. And he thought that the volcano erupted because Obama getting the Affordable Care Act through Congress was the end times.
Yeah, solid brain on that one.
Solid.
Making all the connections there. He's seeing all. He's finally going to get to the bottom and finally uncover the butter people. For what they are.
Everyone thinks it's magma and lava that come out of a volcano, Chris. But we know it's butter.
But have you ever tasted the stuff that comes out of volcanoes, Paris? No, because they tell you it's too hot to eat.
They tell you to stay away. That's why there's fencing. You gotta go beyond the fencing. You gotta get right in there. They tell you that everyone in Pompeii died from the ash and the heat and the lava. No.
That was a big butter people cover-up.
It was a butter people cover-up. That's why you just see the outline of their bodies, because they were butter. They slipped away.
They were buttered to death.
Wow. Good night to you. Good day. What do you got against the night, Chris? What did the night ever do to you? Yeah, and you know what the night is? It's a time of day. No, they won't. No, they won't. They don't know. They don't know.